Good afternoon and welcome to our fourth YLC video cast, and today we get to speak about friendship. Over the past two kind of modules we've been exploring what it means to have a theology of friendship, what friendship holding this potential to transform our world. And so we've been going on that journey, and today we want to explore that a little bit further with someone who's been doing this practically their entire lives.
Yeah, we're so excited that we have a very good friend of mine, Grant Porthen, with us today. Grant is an urban missionary or theologian, depends what you want to call him. And Grant's been living in community for a few years, him and his family, and just practicing good neighborliness and exploring friendship. And so we're really excited to hear what Grant has to say about friendship and how that can impact the world.
So, Mr. Porthen, tell us who you are.
I'm Grant Porthen. I'm married to Stephanie, and I have two kids, Mercy and Myra. If you see the built-in Ray-Bans, that's was probably because I'm getting asleep.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, that's the dad life. But yeah, we've been living in Salt River intentionally with a group of friends of ours for 6 years now, and yeah. Pastor at Jubilee Community Church, yeah, just enjoy being a part of what God's doing in the world.
So what makes you come alive, Mr. Porthen? Help us to get into
Yeah.
who Grant is. What makes you come alive?
Wow, when Manchester United don't lose.
Okay.
So you haven't been very alive lately.
I haven't. But thanks be for the Lord, for Jesus. Like you can just like anchor your life in Him, And so when we face these troubled times, we were able to deal with it a bit better. Yeah. So I mean that Jesus, lots of Jesus gets me going. Friendship, having conversations like this, dreaming about newness or something new, and so reimagining different things. And so I think I actually get that from my mother. My mother and I, we always used to have these conversations. My late mom, always about like dreaming. We'd always dream. We'd always like have conversations. Imagine this. And none of it ever came to pass, at least, or none of those dreams were realized. But I was actually thinking about this the other day. I actually think I got that from my mom. Just this, like, you're always looking to something or trying to imagine something different.
One of the things you said that makes you come alive is this idea of friendship. And so, if you could kind of define or give that a definition, how would you define friendship?
So I would define friendship as two or more people in a deep relationship with one another that are grounded in their faith in Jesus, and that live intentionally in terms of seeking the kingdom together. But also as they are seeking and living intentionally on this kingdom agenda, they also are vulnerable, I think, in the process. And so that's how I see friendship. And so I think one of the reasons why I would root the friendship in there, because I'm seeing more and more that when the Holy Spirit comes into our lives, he really binds us together. He makes us one. And so, which I think sometimes that's sort of underplayed sometimes in the church, the fact that the Holy Spirit is living in me, but He's also living in us.
Sure.
And so which joins us together. And so and I think that as a foundation for friendship is potent. And so yeah, and I think that's a solid foundation. That's something that can't change, because that's something that God has sealed us with, And so in an ever-changing world where things are always changing, that won't change. That reality won't change. And so I think that's where friendship is, for me at least, is grounded, particularly in our relationship with Jesus.
Sure. Now, my favorite my favorite theologian.
Yeah.
He's African. His name is Emmanuel Katangole. He speaks about mission and friendship, and he says that we engage in mission to establish friendships that leads to the formation of a new people. I'm really struck by that. In your view, how does that idea parallel with the story of Jesus?
Sure.
How do you sort of put them together?
I think like what I love about Jesus, and what I love about the question as well is that when you look at Jesus' life, you can see three-dimensional friendship. Yeah, There's three dimensions to friendship that he embodies and he models for us. There's friendship with the Father, friendship with his disciples, and then friendship with the world. So he's engaged in the world. And so there's a theologian, Mike Green. He wrote a book on discipleship, and he has this thing called life shapes, and one of the shapes is a triangle, and he speaks about this three-dimensional friendship at least. And so when I think of Jesus' life, that has to do with mission. As he moves up and to the Father, he's empowered to engage community. He's empowered. He also knows who to engage with, and I think that moving up relationally with the Father gives him capacity for friendship.
Sure.
Gives him energy, he's sustained. But then also we see him going deep with his disciples. We see him going deep, eating with them. I think so the humanity of Jesus is doing life on life with his disciples, teaching them through osmosis or spontaneous movement.
Osmosis, what is that?
Sounds like a sauce now. No, it's just spontaneous movement. Just spontaneous
Osmosis.
movement.
Okay, use that next time.
So I mean a friendship, doing intentional friendship, intentional going up with the Father, intentional going in with each other, but then intentional as a collective going out on mission.
Sure.
And so I think that picture is about friendship. It's within the context of that three-dimensional friendship framework at least. We see Jesus leaving us a model, I think, for us to follow. We see the early church doing the same. Acts 2, they are devoted to the teaching, they're devoted to one another, to each other, but then also people are added.
Sure.
So there you get the up, in, and and going out. And I think that's really, really key. So I think there's such a lot. Mission happens in the context of friendship, and so I think that's something I just learned sort of along the way, that it's not about me doing mission, it's about us doing mission. It's about the family of doing mission together, and so and I think we get that from Jesus.
You speak so passionately about this model of friendship that you bring from the scriptures, but let's have a window into Grant a little bit. Who have been some of the significant friendships, or what have been some of the significant friendships in your life that have shaped who you are today, to where you've come? Like you've said, it hasn't been like a once off, this is what I believe, but it's been like this journey to come to where you are. So what has shaped you? Who has been the people who have shaped you? What kind of friendships have shaped you along the way?
There's so many. I think for sort of I think about my wife. She's a significant friend. I think important, and I've learned so much from her. And I think different friendships, because we are made in the image of God, and God writes our individual stories. We don't write our own stories. We cooperate in that story. But God, there's something significant as an image bearer that you bring, that I bring, that my wife brings, and I think that's what I love about friendship. And so if Kings offers me something as a friend that my wife will never be able to offer, because she's not kings, you know. That's what I love about friendship. Every friendship or form of friendship is dynamic, very very dynamic. And so even answering that question is like, what is the significant? Man, I think every friendship that I have is very very significant, because every friendship, they offer something so different. Um, and and I even feel I'm a bit like fearful of like naming a few, because then I'm gonna like exclude but if I had to answer,
Yeah.
then,
I actually have a question
Yeah.
to sort of delve a bit deeper
Yeah.
into that particular
Yeah.
question. Maybe before you answer,
Yeah.
because I don't want to put you on pressure. But if we think about the context of Cape Town, right? And we think about the shifts that you have been on since that time, you know, when you encountered Jesus. I remember that story so well. And then you went on this like year of your life program with ambassadors.
Yeah.
Like there's been this journey that you've been on, right? But the way in which you see the city now is not the way you saw it then.
yeah, definitely.
So what has been some of the significant friendships that has enabled you to have new eyes?
Wow, that's good. And so I think definitely, like if I look along the way, like even since the first day I came to Christ, or at least in the faith, I think I would say there was a guy, Dave Waters, for example, significant. I think just in terms of journeying. My first ministry experience was actually with you. Believe it or not, where you invited me to join.
To Holiday Club?
Yeah, that was my first, like, that was,
indeed.
well, all of life is ministry, but in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of the
yeah,
actual
yeah.
framework, that was my, like, my first thing. So that was a really exciting time for me. Yeah, so that was heavy. So I mean, I think that in its own really impacted my view on the church, I think. And because I was a church member in a particular denomination, but that experience at the Holiday Club really gave me a framework of like, oh my word, like there are people from different churches, you know. And so you have to be, because of my story and coming from the background that I came from, not a churchy background, to actually have that exposure and that experience from the start and saying, wow, okay, so we're supposed to do this thing together, you know. So that was, for me, that was a significant, I think, experience. And so along the way, there were key people that invested, I think, just helping me to read the scriptures and read it slowly. I think about Denzel Abrams. He would always like say, when we read it, you're gonna read it slowly, slowly. And you just remember those things, you know. Those are all significant markers. I think of a guy, a mentor, even now, who I meet with quite regularly, Mark Harris, who just helps me to uncover my story and the brokenness of my story, and helping to uncover the death of my story, so we can grab hold of the resurrection within our story. And so he's played such a significant role in my life, you know. Just for that, I think, let me bring it to my wife, let me bring it home. My wife, just picture of steadfast love, humility, and so I learned loads from her, just in a gentleness, in a patience. And so I don't know anybody as more patient or as patient as my wife, you know. And so I learned loads from that. My kids, you know, I would say those are significant friendships. I'm not just trying to be a dad, and I want to be their friend. I want to model friendship with them. I want them to confide in me, and me to confide in them. I want to have fun with them. I want her also to know that we are adventurous, and and so all these little things, you know. And so are significant, I think, relationships. But again, those are just a few. I'm sure there are so many, you know. And I think that's also important, I think, because it also moves us away from an individualistic view of life. The story, like the fact that we're sitting here, all of us have people that have contributed to our story and shaped our story, you know. And so and that will continue. And so even the people that we are here, we're being significantly shaped by other people's stories, your story, his story, and just people that we meet. So we don't just arrive at a certain place just, it's just like that. We've all been impacted by other people, and so that have contributed to us. We become mutually contributors to them, and there's this interconnectivity. Is that a word?
Connectivity, yeah.
We can say that. Yeah, and I think that's also just we don't live on an island. And I think to assume that we do, and I know there's no assumption yet, but I mean, it's just sort of smashing the myth that we are here because of ourselves. That's impossible.
Yeah, stepping into that, this idea of we're not alone, there's a story, the story's unfolding, Actually, my story is forming and shaping part of your story, and your story, my story. I love how you explain this idea of us all bearing God's image, all of us. And so when we come into relationship with each other, right, there's a freshness and a newness that gets added to my story that actually is missing if you're not there. And it's beautiful, I love that. So why have you and Steph decided to live like you live? Because you have decided to, in a sense, ignore the normal understanding of building your family alone by yourself and following a particular career, but instead you're living like this. Tell us, what is leading you to do that?
I think I think for us, I think it was firstly a call, I think from God, and yeah, I think it's just by God's grace as well that He's sort of taken us on this journey and helped us to given us the opportunity to express life in this way. I think coming back to the image, bearing God's image, I think like in terms of our own story, as in whichever domain God places us in, we are giving expression to something that's like God, that you like. So there's something about that God has placed in you that you're gonna reflect in this world that I can't, and so He's placed you and I and yourself in particular domains, bearing His image, to be reflectors and a representation of there's something godlike in that nobody else can do, because you've got we've all got unique imprints on us. And so I think, coming back to the question, I think for us, God has given us the opportunity to express something of both the death and the resurrection in terms of our story within the context that we find ourselves. And I think that's why we are here. I think secondly, we love people. God has given us a passion for tough neighborhoods within the city, and also to explore. Thirdly, to explore a different way. To explore, what does it mean to follow Jesus just by immersing ourselves within a particular location and just living and learning how to live intentionally in that space. With all the challenges of having a God complex within this space and unlearning that.
That's good.
And so do you get what I'm saying? So I think for us it's even living in community in the way that we do, the process of sanctification in our lives, has been. I mean, we think someone said to be a blessing is to strengthen the arm of someone else. The origin of the word blessing, I want to strengthen someone else's arm. So we think we're coming into the community to be a blessing, and I think as people that have been blessed by Jesus, we sort of interject spaces to bring blessing in spaces that are cursed. So there's that element, but in us, it's so complex because as we move to be a blessing, like we are also the recipients
Sure.
of blessing, within the neighborhood as well. And so that's been a learning as well for us in the community. So yeah, I think we're moving here because of Jesus, to immerse ourselves, but also to learn and to be both blessers, but also to receive.
So I love the way you speak about the city, and I love kind of the passion you display when you speak about the city. One of the things that we are committed to at YLC is exploring our city, exploring the brokenness of our city, and holding in tension the potential that the city has. And that's kind of the type of leaders we are wanting to form. So when you think about leadership in the city, what are some of those key elements that you think a leader kind of needs to embody as they pursue leadership in Cape Town?
Yeah, so for me, you could there are loads you could sort of speak on this, but for me it's just the three things that come to mind are like 3 P's: person, people, and place. The person of Jesus is so key for a leader. God is calling us into relationship with Himself, and friendship. We're speaking about friendship here, and so. I think prioritizing friendship with Jesus is so key for a leader, particularly in a place in the times that we're in now that are so complex. There's such a lot of uncertainty, and so I really want to encourage all leaders, like I'm encouraging myself and our team, to prioritize the person of Jesus. The person of Jesus. He gives us life. He gives us sustenance. And He's going to enable us to continue. And then the second thing is people. It's not about programs. The thing is about people. Jesus loved people, and so prioritize people. It's not about the what; it's about the who. And sometimes I feel particularly with all the stuff going on, and I love programs. And which is another P. But I think just the encouragement to all leaders. In the midst of all the programs, in the midst of all the stuff, let's remember to prioritize not the what, but the who. And then the last P is like place. Prioritize place, being active learners and listeners within spaces and places. I think that's so important that we not only exegete the text, but we need to be exegeters of the city, of the place that God has placed us in. And so, and that does require all leaders to walk in humility and become active learners and listeners within our time.
Sure. You obviously really like the letter P. So I'm gonna try to ask my last question, including the P in there. I don't know if it's because your surname was Porthen, and now you like this P thing. But yeah, just the final question. It's a dreaming question. We like to add this dreaming question into the podcast as a way of us to develop a new posture, P, a new disposition. I'm sticking with P's, right? But if we Keenan spoke a bit about the landscape of our city, so I'm not gonna press on that some more. But in what ways do you think art and imagination can paint the P?
He's not gonna stop now.
Alternative communities that embody the values of God's kingdom.
I think art has both potential yeah, to help us to paint pictures of the past, to give us a picture of like where we've come from, but it also has the power to paint a picture for what's to come. And if you think about all of our stories, again, every story, we are asking 2 questions really, like where have we come from and like where are we going, and so those are 2. If we think about like the questions, we ask a lot of questions, but like if we could sort of narrow down where we come from, individually, but also collectively, but we're also asking a question, man, where am I going? Where am I going? And so I think we when I think about art, I think about this guy, this actor I know who does a phenomenal piece on like sort of drawing stories from our past. He just did something on the Truth and the Reconciliation Commission, at least. And it was so powerful. And afterwards, I think I had a conversation with him. I said, "Wow, like that was so powerful. And that's where we came from, right? But it'd be amazing if we did something that could just paint something or do something or spark imagination for where we are going." And I think we need to give people pictures of that to spark their imagination, because I think that's where it starts. That's where we start after. When we have the imagination, we can start embodying that as we walk here. And I think coming back to my mom, I can actually see how that sort of played out even in conversations with my mom back in the day. Like, imagine if we did this, imagine if we did this, imagine if we did that. I find myself doing it with my daughter now as well, my daughters as well. Imagine. But imagine if we are doing that tangibly with people within tough neighborhoods, within the townships, on the Cape Flats. Imagine. And then imagine if we take it further and start journeying with them and start painting new pictures of a new reality within those spaces. And I think it's both. I think that's God has empowered us through His Spirit, not to imagine something different, but also to create something different by the power of His Holy Spirit. And so,
earlier you shared with us about this. Actually, it's happening in Salt River, a mural that was painted that is part of this seeing something alternative. You want to just touch on that?
Yeah, in our a couple houses down, there's I think the homeowner allowed some artists to do a mural of some sort, but it's such a powerful mural because, like, or painting, it's a picture of a kid or child standing on a stool, and there's in a library, and there's so many books on in this painting, and the child's just reaching out for the book right on top. And I was like, wow, that picture's so prophetic, because, like, if you think about our community, most kids in our neighborhood, they are not reaching out for education, they're not reaching out for life. They tend to reach out for things they don't give life. And so I think, like, that picture is prophetic, because, like, every time you walk past it, you can't help but think about, man, like imagine if we reached out for something different, you know. And so I think, even though that may not be the reality at present, that picture does spark the imagination for kids to live a different story.
Yeah.
And also for us to tell a different story within our neighborhoods.
Sure. Grant, it's been so good to have you. In fact, it's been so good for us to be with you and to be with you in Salt River and to introduce all of you to my very good friend Grant. Like, you've always been an encouragement to me, you know. I joke with you, but you definitely are this community pastor. You get pastors and then you get people like Grant, who all pastors actually want to be like, because you are trying to make sense of the gospel in the real world with people every single day, not
Urban
just on or urban missionary, you know.
Okay.
So thank you so much for just opening up and sharing your story, and also just for the friendship that we get to enjoy, that have edified both of us. And, yeah, I hope you had a good time. I hope that you were encouraged. Somebody once said that friendship has the capacity to change the world, and when I hear Grant speak, I see that in practice, and I'm really excited for what that is. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.